Chapter 1161 No Way. The moment the huge dark halberd, which was more than 10 meters long, appeared, everyone's face suddenly changed. This battle lasted for nearly half a day, but from beginning to end, Zhang Yi had been using means to avoid Li Changgong's attack or delay him. It was the first time that he used such a terrible killing move. It's okay. Any attack will be cut off by the ability of the eldest brother, and no matter how powerful the ability is, it can't kill the eldest brother. Jiang Han clenched his fists and said. But she didn't notice the deep smile on Zhang Yi's mouth. The halberd of destruction came to Li Changgong in an instant. His eyes were red, and his two swords swung out fiercely. My thoughts are all cut, and nothing can be broken. The huge black halberd was directly split in two from the middle. But this time, it did not fly elsewhere, but exploded when it passed by both sides of Li Changgong. A huge black sphere suddenly appeared in the air, and in an instant formed a sphere with a radius of up to 10 kilometers. Single attack is ineffective against you, but you can't deal with large-scale AoE attacks, right? Zhang Yi said. He just used a small trick to deceive Li Changgong. That is, to release two halberds of destruction at the same time, and then pretend that there is only one. And when approaching Li Changgong, let them separate. This gave Li Changgong the illusion that he split Zhang Yi's halberd of destruction with one knife. Brother! Jiang Han shouted excitedly. Qin Shigong held her shoulders and smiled at her, and said, Don't worry, Go Chen will be fine. At some point, Zhang Dawen disappeared from the spot. Zhang Yi's eyes stared at Li Changgong, who was hit, and whispered softly, With this attack coverage, you don't have time to escape with your ability. Li Changgong, you're not really dead, are you? Li Changgong certainly did not die. This is in Shengjing, and there are many Ypsilons watching this battle, and they will not allow Huaxi to lose a top combat force. What's more, the battle between Zhang Yi and Li Changgong is not the kind of extremely thrilling type, but the kind of tug-of-war with a very long time span. This kind of battle can minimize the risk. In the void, darkness dissipated. Li Changgong's body was suspended in midair, his combat uniform was shattered, and his helmet exploded. He was lying in midair, surrounded by a thick layer of blue light. Although he was not killed by Zhang Yi at this time, his eyes had lost focus. A strange color flashed in Zhang Yi's eyes. No wonder Qin Shigong said that he would have people protect the two of them at a critical moment to avoid death. It turned out that there was such a trick. In the distance, Zhang Dawen flew like a meteor. He flew between Zhang Yi and Li Changgong and exhaled a long breath of turbid air. Mr. Chaos, we agreed not to kill him. You're too heavy. If I was slower, Go Chen might have really been killed by you. It was he who saved Li Changgong's life just now. Zhang Yi glanced at Zhang Dawen. This mythical existence, codenamed Xidagarba, seemed to be a holder of the ability of mind. Otherwise, he would not have been able to quickly use powerful mind power to form a shield in such a short time to save Li Changgong's life. Far away in the Earth God Temple in Shengjing, Guan Longhua put away the wooden sculpture in her hand. Zhang Yi's attack seemed strong, but he didn't really want to kill Li Changgong, so she didn't need to stop him. This was good because if she attacked, the target would be Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi looked at the collapsed Li Changgong, but still continued to ask, Is this battle over? Li Changgong, do you admit defeat? Zhang Dawen's eyebrows trembled interestingly, and he looked back at Li Changgong with a helpless look. Is there any need to say more? He had already attacked. If Li Changgong hadn't been there, he might have lost his life with that attack just now. But Zhang Yi said this deliberately to completely defeat Li Changgong's confidence. Li Changgong's eyes flashed with ripples like waves, and then he slowly closed his eyes. Zhang Yi laughed and said loudly, The king of the Northwest is not pretending to be dead, is he? The descendant of a general, the supreme commander of the Northwest region, is pretending to be dead when he can't win. He shouted loudly with a loudspeaker, Oh my God! Do you expect everyone to have a bad memory and keep their mouths shut and not tell everyone about this? No. The smart device of the combat uniform has a very effective amplification system, which is convenient for issuing orders during battle. So Zhang Yi shouted at the top of his voice, and the sound spread from the sky to the surroundings, and everyone in the distance heard it clearly. Li Changgong opened his eyes suddenly. Don't say it. Zhang Yi lowered his head and looked at him, looking down at him, with the same demeanor as when Li Changgong faced Zhang Yi at the beginning. Do you know you are wrong? He turned the gun in his hand gracefully. Or, do you want to continue fighting? Li Changgong's face was very ugly, and Shang Dawen also looked at him with a playful look, and that expression seemed to say, Li Changgong, you have some shame. If you don't admit defeat, I won't make another move. Li Changgong's throat hoarse as a rusty tin can. He paused for nearly a minute before he said this word with a red face and a grieved expression. I lost. After saying this, it was as if something was pulled out of Li Changgong's body with a syringe. His face darkened rapidly, and his back was no longer as straight as before. Qin Qigong, Han Shanzhua, Zhang Han, and Paja Jesang all clearly saw the loneliness that was difficult to conceal on this man. Zhang Yi didn't say anything more. This blow has completely restored his face. Being defeated by someone he looked down upon completely shattered Li Changgong's dignity. Zhang Yi took a half-step back and disappeared on the spot, then flew towards Shengjing City. Shang Dawen looked at Li Changgong, smiled, and comforted him. Lord Go Qin, a temporary victory or defeat cannot explain anything. I hope you can cheer up and be brave after knowing shame. Li Changgong closed his eyes. Let me stay alone and be quiet for a while. Shang Dawen raised his eyebrows. Okay, I'll go back first. Shang Dawen left, and Li Changgong's telekinesis disappeared. He fell freely from the air and fell to the ground. Not long after, his body fell into the mud full of ice water. He also has spatial power, so he will not be killed by the fall. But he still let himself fall a little. The pain in the body can relieve the pain in his heart. He completely submerged himself in the mud and water, and under him was a huge deep pit made by Zhang Yi, which had long been filled with mud and water. Li Changgong sank into the deepest part of the mud and water. He was too ashamed to see anyone. Zhang Yi came in front of Qin Qigong and others, and his eyes glanced at Jiang Han imperceptibly. Jiang Han's eyes were very complicated, but he said nothing. In a world where strength is respected, Zhang Yi even defeated Li Changgong. So from now on, no one has the right to say that he is wrong in front of him. Chapter 1162 Money or Face. Zhang Yi flew back. After a big battle, his condition was still perfect. Not only was he unscathed, but his spirit and energy were not affected at all. Qin Qigong and others looked at him. At this time, everyone's eyes on Zhang Yi changed significantly. In the past, they thought that although Zhang Yi was powerful, he was a small figure of humble origin after all, and his upper limit might not be very high. After meeting a general like Li Changgong, the king of soldiers in the army must be crushed. But today, they watched Zhang Yi defeat Li Changgong with their own hands. There was no fancy, just a crushing of hard power. The strong can always win the respect of everyone, and so is Zhang Yi. Qin Qigong took a deep breath and said with emotion, "It is worthy of the absolute defense of the Jiangnan region. The strength is so strong that it makes people awe." Shang Dawen murmured in a low voice, "Chaos, chaos." Chaos is hazy and unknowable, making it difficult for people to see the true face. As expected, the name is as good as the person. If anyone dares to underestimate him, he will definitely suffer a great loss. Shang Dawen's words made everyone nod. Zhang Yi was too good at hiding. In fact, the top leaders of all regions had heard of his story. They knew how he fought every time, seemingly turning the tide in the eyes of others who couldn't believe it, but in fact he was sure to win. Such a person made everyone in awe. Everyone secretly said in their hearts, "Never go against this person in the future, because you never know how many cards he has hidden." Zhang Yi was too good at hiding. It was hard to see how deep this kind of person was. On the contrary, after occasionally showing a little edge, people were more in awe of him. Zhang Yi smiled and said to everyone, "I won half a point by luck. I'm sorry to make you laugh." He was modest, but everyone didn't dare to really think so. Han Shanzhua crossed his arms. nodded and said, "Boy, you are really capable. This time, I am convinced by you." He gave Jangi a thumbs up, with a look of sincere admiration on his face. In fact, Han Shanzhua didn't like the domineering Li Changgong. Seeing Li Changgong being beaten by Zhang Yi, he was secretly happy. Zhang Yi said with a smile, "Lucky luck. I'm a little tired. I want to go back and rest first." Qin Shigong hurriedly said, "Of course." He immediately asked Zhang Dawen to arrange a car to take Zhang Yi back. Qin Shigong was extremely happy at this time. The stronger Zhang Yi's strength is, the greater the success rate of their going to Qinling Tianyuan to wipe out the centipede tribe. Add a Li Changgong. Although Li Changgong lost to Zhang Yi, he also showed enough strength. If Han Shanzhua also agrees to go, cooperate with the guardian of Wuyo Valley, Zhongyu. 4 powerful chariot-level epsilons should be able to take them down steadily. Among the crowd, Paja Jeseng, who had been silent all the time, stood behind the crowd with his hands behind his back. His eyes moved with Zhang Yi, and his small eyes slowly narrowed, occasionally flashing a hint of incomprehensible light. On his fat face, the corners of his mouth were slightly raised, and the well-groomed mustache was also raised. "Chaos, Zhang Yi," he muttered silently in a voice that only he could hear. "This is a rare treasure." Just when Zhang Yi was about to leave, a hurried shout suddenly came to everyone's ears. "Wait! Everyone, please don't leave yet." Everyone was stunned when they heard the voice, and when they looked back, they saw Li Changgong rushing from a distance. Everyone looked at each other with strange eyes. Didn't this guy just become emo because he lost to Zhang Yi? He buried himself in the mud and water, wishing he would never see anyone again in his life. How did he recover so quickly? Li Changgong is back. He is indeed very emo. After all, he boasted at the beginning, but was slapped in the face by Zhang Yi at the speed of light. Now, he can't wait to find a crack in the ground to drill into. He even wanted to leave without saying goodbye and take people back to the northwest region directly. However, after being buried in the ice water for 5 minutes, he finally realized that escape was not a solution. He is now the supreme commander of the Northwest region. If the news that he lost to Zhang Yi in this battle spreads, not only will his reputation be damaged, even his rule in the Northwest region may be affected. He had just taken office, and the situation below was turbulent. He had not yet completely mastered everything. It was very likely that someone would make a fuss about this matter. So he suppressed the humiliation in his heart and chose to come back and appear in front of everyone. Li Changgong flew to the front of the crowd and landed. Facing the strange and difficult-to-conceal gazes of the crowd, he slowly opened his mask. Qin Shigong asked with concern, "Nephew, are you okay?" The corner of Li Changgong's eyes twitched, while Zhang Yi on the opposite side looked at him indifferently. Although Zhang Yi did not say a word, the cold and even somewhat indifferent expression still hurt Li Changgong again. Li Changgong could not help but grit his teeth and tried to curb the urge to run away immediately. "Everyone, please wait a moment. There is something I forgot to tell you." Everyone was curious, looked at Li Changgong, wanting to see what he could say. Li Changgong took a deep breath and said to everyone, "We came from the Northwest region this time and brought gifts to everyone. Please don't refuse." As soon as Li Changgong opened his mouth, he was going to give each family a large amount of supplies, which was worth 100 million before the end of the world. This move was 500 million supplies. When everyone heard this, they immediately understood what Li Changgong was going to do. These supplies are actually hush money. Please keep the secret strictly and don't spread the victory or defeat of this battle. From the beginning, Qin Shigong also strictly restricted the number of spectators. Only representatives from various regions were here. He was very cautious in doing things, and he was also worried that the battle situation here, including the information of the 2 people, would be leaked. So, after thinking about it, Li Changgong decided to pay them. Han Shanzhua laughed happily and said, "I have no objection. Brother, you are so polite. I give you this face." Paja Jeseng smiled and did not rush to answer, but looked at other people. Jiang Han nodded and said, "I will keep everything that happened here today strictly confidential." Qin Shigong still needed Li Changgong's help, so he nodded and agreed. In the end, it all depends on Zhang Yi's attitude. Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows and asked meaningfully, "What result do you want? Tell the outside world that you won." Li Changgong's face turned red. He was not a shameless person and could not say such words. "That's not the case. As long as you don't say anything, I, Go Chen, will remember your kindness." Chapter 1163. 5 Continents in Turbulence. Peace is the most important thing. Li Changgong meant to let the outside world think that the two of them had fought to a draw. This way, he would not be too embarrassed. Saying such things in front of everyone also greatly challenged his sense of shame. After all, the result of the battle was seen by everyone. But for his own future, he had to do this. Zhang Yi squinted his eyes, and after a while he slowly said, "Others are just witnesses, and I am a participant. So this time, I want 3 times. Counting the appearance fee you asked me to fight, you owe me 600 million in supplies." That was 600 million worth of supplies before the end of the world, enough to fill a large warehouse. And these supplies are different from the supermarket supplies that Zhang Yi once collected.
What?
Li Changgong gave him must-be necessities in life. For example, food, energy, materials, weapons, etc. Therefore, after calculating in this way, the value is much higher. Li Changgong gritted his teeth and nodded in agreement. Zhang Yi smiled brightly. "Brotherly, please rest assured. I like making friends the most. I have made you my friend. As for what we are discussing today, only God and the earth know, and everyone present here knows. It will never be spread." Li Changgong's heart was bleeding. He didn't expect that this time he would have to pay for materials worth 1 billion yuan in one go. Those materials are basically non-renewable resources. With the current productivity of the Northwest region, it is impossible to produce them in the short term. But for his face and status, he must take out those materials. Jiang Han walked over and whispered to Li Changgong, "Brother, I don't want my share." Li Changgong took a deep breath and didn't say anything else. Except for the two of them, everyone present was very happy at this time. Especially Qin Shigong, Paji Gasang, and Han Shanzhua. Their faces were almost crooked with laughter. They just came to watch the fun and picked up a big bargain for nothing. However, they did not remember this favor to Li Changgong, but to Zhang Yi, so they looked at Zhang Yi with more friendliness. Qin Shigong said with a smile, "All people in the world are brothers, and peace is the most precious thing. You two can be regarded as acquaintances without fighting. After today, the previous grievances will be in the past. Let's work together to defend our Huashu country." Everyone laughed, and the scene was full of joy. Only Li Changgong couldn't laugh. Qin Shigong arranged a car to take everyone back. When leaving, Li Changgong stopped Zhang Yi.
Chaos.
Zhang Yi turned his head to look at Li Changgong. "What?" Li Changgong frowned, took a deep breath, and then said to Zhang Yi, "Don't call my name in the future." Zhang Yi sneered, "You are really pretentious. The convention of code names comes from the military, which is to hide the identity when going on a mission. But now there are only a few Ypsilons in Huashu country. Who doesn't know who the other party is?" Li Changgong said to Zhang Yi, "A name is a very dangerous thing, so you should be careful." When Zhang Yi heard this, his heartbeat suddenly accelerated. Li Changgong's eyes were very serious, not like he was joking, nor like he was deliberately looking for trouble. It was more like a subtle reminder. Zhang Yi was silent for a moment and replied, "Well, I remember it. Go Chen." Li Changgong nodded, with a gloomy face, and left with Jiang Han. And tonight's meeting was temporarily ended because of the battle between Zhang Yi and Li Changgong. However, Qin Shigong had said everything he wanted to say. He asked the representatives of each region to think carefully after returning and give him an answer within a week. Li Changgong would basically agree. He now needs to do something to consolidate his position. Having just lost to Zhang Yi, it is particularly important for him to participate in the action in the Qinling Mountains and obtain a yuan mine. However, except for him, others were not in a hurry to express their opinions. Zhang Yi thought secretly in his heart. In fact, going underground is not a big problem for him. His ability to save his life comes first, and he can easily escape even in dangerous underground. And according to the information provided by Shengjing District, the strength of the 2 Epsilon-level centipede king insects is only at the level of 10,000 plus White Chariot. But he did not rush to give an answer, but planned to think about it carefully before giving a response. After all, it is not a business deal, and there is still plenty of time. He can take advantage of this time to take his companions in the shelter to have a good stroll in Shengjing. Zhang Yi and others returned to Xinjiang Minghuang City. Deng Xintong and others were waiting outside the conference hall, not knowing that they had already left and started a half-day battle. So it was already the early morning of the next day, and the sky was pitch black, but no one left, but waited for news from Zhang Yi and others in the side hall. They just thought that the meeting was too important, so it was held for a long time. It was only after Zhang Yi and the others came back that they knew what happened last night. Zhou Ke, Yang Xia and others came over and asked with concern, "Are you not injured?" Zhang Yi smiled. "Don't worry, I'm fine, he is." Everyone knew that Zhang Yi won. Everyone had a relieved smile on their face. Deng Xintong was stunned. He was the only one who didn't know Zhang Yi's current strength, so it was normal for him to be stunned. However, when Zhang Yi's eyes swept over them, he didn't see Fatty Su. He asked curiously, "Where is Fatty Su?" Everyone's face was full of ambiguous smiles. Lu Kuoran replied, "Brother Qinling went out with the housekeeper who was responsible for picking us up." Zhang Yi's face became very subtle. He couldn't help but think of something. At this time, Fatty Su seemed to have received the news that Zhang Yi was back, and he also walked back from the door. As soon as he entered the door, everyone looked at him. Fatty Su scratched his head in confusion. "Why are you looking at me like that? Is there something wrong with my face?" Behind him, the courtyard housekeeper Li Yangyang came over with a smile, bowed respectfully and said, "Everyone, it's getting late. Do you want to go back to the manor to rest? Or do you need to take a shower or have a meal? If so, I'll have someone prepared immediately." Zhang Yi looked at Fatty Su, then at the tall beauty Li Yangyang, with a strange look in his eyes. "Go back first. Some things are not convenient to say here." So Zhang Yi took everyone and returned to the manor where they lived in the early morning. Li Yangyang withdrew and asked people to prepare the services they needed for them. Only Zhang Yi and other people from the Jiangnan region were left in the room. As soon as the outsiders left, Deng Xintong asked impatiently, "Old Zhang, did you beat Li Changong?" Chapter 1164. Looking for an old friend. Zhang Yi drank the warm tea and nodded slowly. "Yeah." Deng Xintong was speechless for a long time. "Sure enough, you are still as mysterious as before, and no one can see through your strength." Yang Xinxin sat on the sofa not far from Zhang Yi, holding a delicate teacup in her hand, drinking tea while asking Zhang Yi, "Brother, are you going to the Qinling Mountains?" Zhang Yi smiled slightly and asked back, "Do you think I should go?" Yang Xinxin nodded without hesitation. "Shengjing District has no reason to harm my brother." According to them, the garrison commander of Weo Valley is still alive, which means that the threat under the ground is not as terrible as imagined. And according to the current situation, it is obviously impossible for the East China Sea District to participate in the operation. Li Changgong will definitely participate in order to maintain his face. As for the Southwest District, Yang Xinxin smiled and shook her head. From the people they sent, it can be seen that they have no plans in this regard. They are quite perfunctory. But at present, Xinjiang has at least Zhen Yuanzi and Go Chun who can be dispatched. Luya in the Northeast District is still uncertain, but even so, if you take action, brother, the 3 Epsilons will work together. The probability of success of this operation is very high. Zhang Yi nodded. "I think so too. Besides, I have a lot of doubts about that underground secret realm." He thought of the black-armored man in the Fog Valley and the Tianlong King who was transformed and lived a life worse than death. And the last words of the Tianlong King before his death. A strong sense of crisis enveloped Zhang Yi. Although it is unknown when the crisis will come, when people face the fear of the unknown, the best way to bring a sense of security is to constantly improve their own strength. Yuan or, if obtained, Zhang Yi can greatly improve the defense level of the entire shelter. This deal still has a lot of profit margins and is worth doing. I will consider this matter carefully, but I have to observe carefully to see the movements of other regions. If there is no problem, I can go on this trip. When Zhang Yi was talking, Zhou Kuter put one of his arms in front of him, and her hands were emitting white light, checking his body. Prevent him from being secretly injured in the battle with Li Changgong. Zhang Yi looked at her, and then at Yang Xinxin, Yang Xia, and others. He smiled and said, "There is nothing to do in the past few days. We can go around Xingjing. By the way, there is one more thing. Old Deng, come and help me arrange it." Zhang Yi looked at Deng Shintong. The Deng family has a deep foundation in Huaxi country and has a wide network of contacts in Xingjing. Deng Shintong sat up straight. "Just tell me if there's anything you need."
He was more than happy to be able to help Zhang Yi.
Zhang Yi smiled and said, "Find a way to help me check if anyone has any relatives still alive in Xingjing. It's best to communicate with people in other regions. If you find any relatives still alive, you can send them to Tianhai City." After hearing Zhang Yi's words, the expressions of the people at the scene immediately became complicated. Uncle Yu sighed and shook his head. His hometown is a small village in the north. As a bachelor who has been working outside for many years, he has no relatives at home. Now, Zhang Yi is his relative. Not to mention Fatty Su, he has been holding the game console since he came back. After listening to Zhang Yi's words, he was relieved. Fortunately, everyone in our village is dead. Then he lowered his head and continued to play games. But Yang Xinxin and other women are different. The Yang family and the Zhou family were both considered good families. Lu Karen was not from a high family, but her parents were also high-level intellectuals. After the end of the world, the probability of their loved ones surviving is higher than that of ordinary people. It is impossible to say that they don't want to look for them. It's just, they also have some concerns in their hearts. If they find their family, should they continue to live with Zhang Yi or accompany their family? Yang Xinxin's expression was the calmest. She took a sip of the coffee in the cup and said lightly, "I have no relatives to find. Her father died of illness in his early years, and her mother remarried abroad and rarely contacted her. If not for this, she would not have been entrusted to Yang Xia to take care of her and sent to Tianqing College, a closed aristocratic school." So when Zhang Yi asked the question, she was calm and directly rejected it. But not everyone is as free and easy as her. After the end of the world, they often hope that their family members are still alive. Zhou Haimei clenched her hands in front of her knees. After thinking for a while, she said, "Then I'll trouble you, Mr. Deng. I actually have a brother who is doing business in Xingjing, but I don't know if he is still alive." Zhou Ke looked at Zhang Yi uneasily, hugged his arm, and said, "I don't know what happened to my parents. If you can find them, can you arrange a place for them to live in Tianhai City? As for me, of course, I won't leave your side." Yang Xia also said, "I'm the same." Lu Karen said, "Brother Zhang Yi, I think so too." Their expressions were a little strange, as if they were afraid that Zhang Yi would be unhappy. Zhang Yi couldn't help but laugh. "This is a good thing.
What are you all looking at?"
If it's your close relatives, you can take them with you. Tianhai City can support them now. Zhang Yi himself is alone. After his parents passed away, although he has relatives, he doesn't interact with them much. But he knows that people need family affection, and he will not deprive his partners of this right. "Old Deng, you go and make arrangements." Deng Shintong said, "No problem." Although Xingjing was also affected by the disaster at the beginning, the impact should be the smallest. After all, it is the capital, and all kinds of emergency measures are very complete. I can go and look for it. Maybe your family is still there. But you also have to be mentally prepared. Deng Shintong spread his hands. "I have to say something ugly in advance. Your family, whether rich or poor, is actually an ordinary family after the end of the world. You also understand what kind of state it is under the disaster." Everyone nodded. They were also prepared in their hearts and would not be fragile. Just let Deng Shintong look for it, and then he can fulfill his wish. Let Deng Shintong arrange this matter, no problem. After arranging everyone, Jangi walked to Fatty Sue, who was sitting in the corner, and patted his shoulder. Fatty Sue then moved his eyes away from the screen and looked at Jangi.
Boss.
Jangi said with a smile, "Tell me about you and that girl." Chapter 1165. You are really hungry. Jangi had already discovered that something was wrong between that woman and Fatty Sue. However, this was only their first day in Shengjing, and Fatty Sue had already begun to lose his mind. If this continued, who knows what would happen to them? Jangi had to intervene. When Fatty Sue heard Jangi ask this, he knew it was about Li Yangyang. His old face turned red, which was rare. He scratched the back of his head with his hand and laughed foolishly. "Boss, you found out?" Jangi rolled his eyes. "I'm not blind. Even a passing dog can see the wretched smile on your big face." Fatty Sue's face flushed with excitement. He looked at Jangi seriously and said word by word, "Boss, I think I'm in love." Jangi was stunned for at least 10 seconds. He opened his mouth and tried to say something, but after thinking for a long time, his brain could not sum up the appropriate words. After a long while, he said with difficulty, "Didn't you say that you no longer believe in love?" Fatty Sue explained, "The past was the past, and now is now. At that time, I didn't meet a woman who was suitable for me, but now," his eyes were sparkling, full of the sour smell of love, "I found my destiny." He put his hands together and said with a face full of piety and happiness, "I used to think that I would only meet such a girl when playing gal game. But I didn't expect that I would meet her in reality in my lifetime. Boss, I will definitely not miss her this time." Jangi frowned and looked at the fat man in front of him with some disgust. "I see you are really hungry. The delusion of a dead fat otaku is the most terrible. Fatty, what can I like about you? Like that you are fat, like that you like to go to Blizzard City to wash your feet?" Fatty Sue was so scared that he quickly stood up and put his index finger in front of his lips. "Boss, don't mention the past. This time I really found true love. You have to support me." Jangi took a deep breath. "Don't you look in the mirror every day? She is beautiful, and many people drool when they see her." His hands fell from in front of Fatty Sue to his feet. "With your appearance, how can you have the courage to say such a thing?" Fatty Sue's expression was dim for a moment, but soon, he clenched his fists again, and his eyes became firm. "Boss, this is love." "Jangi, I love your mother's love." "You fool. It is obvious that the woman came for me. Don't you understand such a simple truth?" Fatty Sue's body froze, and then looked at Jangi with disbelief. "Boss, you already have so many beauties around you, and you still want to compete with me for this?" Jangi took a few deep breaths and resisted the urge to hit him. "I mean, her purpose of approaching you is to get information about all of us from you. You didn't say anything you shouldn't say." Jangi's eyes became serious. Fatty Sue swallowed his saliva, because when Jangi was serious, there was always a kind of momentum that made him odd. He also knew that he should never joke with Jangi at this time. Fatty Sue shook his head like a rattle. "Boss, no. She didn't ask a single word about you." Jangi said lightly, "You and her have only known each other for one day, and you love her to death. When you fall in love with her, you can't wait to take off your underwear and show them to others when they ask you a random question. Fatty, am I okay with the people around me?" Fatty Sue thought to himself, "I would love for her to take off her underwear." "Boss, you are very good to us, I know this." Jangi nodded. "Well, it's good that you know. But this kind of goodness is not without requirements. I am only good to my own people." He didn't say much, just patted Fatty Sue on the shoulder and whispered in his ear, "If you reveal any information about me or us to outsiders, then for the sake of our past friendship, I will send you to the Cheyu base to step on the generator." Fatty Sue shuddered all over. Although he had never stepped on a generator, he had witnessed the conditions of the 3 major bases with his own eyes. Although the people in the shelter had no worries about food and clothing and lived a superior life. But in the 3 major bases in Tianhai City, people were still barely maintaining a state of survival. Those grassroots people, apart from eating and sleeping, were almost working every day, just living for the sake of living like animals. That kind of life is simply worse than death, for Fatty Sue now. Don't worry, boss. I will never reveal a word to her. Fatty Sue immediately stood at attention and shouted at the top of his voice. Zhang smiled slightly. I don't care what you say, I will care what you do. He patted Fatty Sue's fat face and told him to get out. In Zhang Yi's heart, he had already determined that the woman named Li Yangyang was very problematic. However, there was one thing he couldn't figure out. Li Yangyang belonged to the Longming Guard in Xingjing, which was a very elite troops. As the housekeeper serving them, Li Yangyang should be a very professional person. Even if she wanted to go undercover to get intelligence, she would not do it in such a conspicuous way. Even if she wanted to use the beauty trap, she should come directly to seduce Jangi. It's too fake to seduce Fatty Sue. Does she know that I am a gentleman and is afraid that she is not charming enough? Zhang Yi rubbed his chin, thinking that there must be something strange behind this matter. He first gave Fatty Sue a shot of prevention and then saw what the woman was going to do. As for whether Li Yangyang really likes Fatty Sue, well, this can be elected as the funniest joke of the year. Unless there is a problem with her eyes, there is absolutely no such possibility. After Li Chonggong came back, his five-pole war god came to greet him immediately. Li Chonggong put his hands behind his back, with an arrogant expression on his face, and didn't say a word, but he gave people a sense of pride. Seeing this, the men were a little confused about how Li Chonggong fought this battle. After they returned to their accommodation, the sky god of war came over and flattered. Commander, you must have taught that ignorant Hun Dun a lesson this time, right? Li Chonggong leaned back in his chair, his expression intimidating without anger, and he said lightly, I guess so. His subordinates were a little puzzled. I guess so? So is it or not? Li Chonggong sneered, took a sip of tea slowly, and then said, I didn't expect that Hun Dun's strength was quite strong. His code name is Absolute Defense. Basically, when he fought with me, he only defended and didn't attack, and kept fleeing. He refused to fight me head-on. There's no point in fighting like this, so I had to choose to give up,